والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
Ik weet wel niet elektriciteit koopman voor je. Ik zou het dan wat zelfs die elektriciteit opbouwen. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد الحمد لله Continuing with our tafsir of Surah Fatiha. And as you can also appreciate, that tafsir is of such a nature that the more actually a person delves into it, the more there is to be found within the tafsir. And tafsir also indicates to us that the Quran always remains relevant. The Quran never goes out of date. In every era when people read the Quran, sometimes there are certain multiple meanings to certain words in the Quran. And then at one point in time, a particular meaning of that word will be relevant and be applicable, and then under different circumstances, different meaning of that same word will also become relevant. So inshallah we'll continue today. I'd just like to start with the ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسول الكريم أما بعد. So commencing with the ayah, أعوذ الشيطان الرجيم إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek assistance from. So this إِيَّاكَ is actually what is referred to in Arabic as tahsir. Tahsir means to limit something. So this is to limit the action that we are doing only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it indicates a certain degree of exclusivity. أي نخصك يا الله بالعبادة. We specify you only. خص يخص means to specify something. وَنَخُصُّكَ بِطَلَبِ الْإِعَانَةِ, and we specify and limit our search for assistance only to you. So as we mentioned previously also, one is that we understand ourselves to only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but sometimes we think that, we can look for help wherever we can find it, or we can have reliance on anything that is able to give benefit and assistance to us. But everything else that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us to be a source of benefit, it is there to be utilized after we have searched or requested that assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in control of everything. And then sometimes we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then eventually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those means which we might not be aware to be of assistance to us, then Allah ta'ala makes those means available to us. However system Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses. Like a friend of mine, his child is very sick, and they've been to various doctors with his child, and they just can't seem to come to some understanding of what is wrong with this child. So the child became sick again, and then they ended up with a particular nurse that assisted them. And then this nurse also told them, no, but there doesn't seem to actually be anything wrong with this child. And they were insisting that, but there is something wrong with the child. And then the nurse, now just to try and pacify or convince the parents, says, okay, I'll ask the doctor. And then the nurse went to go call a particular doctor, and the doctor came, and then the doctor examined the child, and then the doctor said, no, but there's something seriously wrong with this child. So then the nurse got a shock, because according to the nurse, she couldn't see anything wrong with the child. But then in the doctor's estimation, there was something very wrong with the child, and the doctor ordered for blood tests, and the doctor ordered this test, and the doctor ordered 4 different tests. So then the father said that the fact that this nurse didn't go and call the doctor because she actually regarded the doctor to find something wrong with the child. She actually just called the doctor because she just wanted the parents to be pacified. She just wanted the parents to understand that what she was telling them was the truth. And then eventually what the doctor said contradicted what the nurse said. So then he mentions that, so when this now happened, he said to his wife, you see, this is how Allah is helping us. This is how Allah is helping us. Because the nurse didn't call the doctor to actually come and do what the doctor did. But Allah Ta'ala decided that that doctor would be the person that will be able to identify what is wrong with this child. So having been to different doctors, making dua, etc., Allah Ta'ala brought him to a person that was able to assist him. That is Iyaka nasta'in. We put our reliance in you, and then Allah Ta'ala makes the means available, insha'Allah. فَلَا نَعْبُدُ أَحَدًا سِوَاكَ لَكَ وَحْدَكَ نَظُلُّ وَنَخْضَعُ وَنَسْتَكِينُ وَنَخْشَى. فَلَا نَعْبُدُ أَحَدًا سِوَاكَ. We do not worship anyone besides you. You alone. لَكَ وَحْدَكَ. You alone. نَظُلُّ. It is towards you that we humble ourselves. وَنَخْضَعُ. We submit ourselves. وَنَسْتَكِينُ وَنَخْشَى. You alone we remain committed to, and you alone we fear. وَإِيَّاكَ رَبُّنَا نَسْتَعِينُ عَلَى طَاعَتِكَ وَمَرْضَاتِكَ. You alone we seek your assistance. And how do we seek your assistance? Through the ta'atik, through your obedience, وَمَرْضَاتِكَ, and through seeking your pleasure. In everything we do, we seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. فَإِنَّكَ الْمُسْتَحِقْ لِكُلِّ إِجْلَالِ وَالتَّعْظِيمِ. Because you alone, oh Allah, is the one who is entitled. You alone are deserving of all majesty and all greatness. وَلَا يَمْلِكُ الْقُدْرَةَ عَلَىٰ أَوْنِنَا أَحَدٌ سِوَاكَ. Allahu Akbar. And nobody, nothing has got any ability to assist us besides you. Because the masdar, the source of all abilities and capabilities, that we see in this dunya, it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing has got any ability, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Nothing has got any ability, nothing has got any power to do anything, to give any benefit, to give any harm, except with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a cardinal principle of our belief. And that in reality is how we have to show our belief in Allah Ta'ala every day. Our test is not on a daily basis to have to prove that we believe Allah exists. It is not to prove that Allah is one. The test that we live daily is that we are being confronted with benefit and harm in everything we do. Because it is either benefit and harm in terms of the things we need, or benefit and harm in terms of the things that we confront. What will benefit me with regards to my needs? I need food, I need water, I need clothing, I need electricity, I need so many things. So how do I get those things? You understand? How do I get those things? How do I consider myself to be able to acquire it? From who do I consider that it comes? If I have a need, where do I consider I must take my need to have it fulfilled? Do I consider that the one who is fulfilling my need is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do I consider that my need is something else? So this is the test that we have every day. And the same with the things that we consider to be harmful to us. You understand? Where do I seek my protection from? Where do I have my reliance on, for the things that I want to be saved from, the things I consider to be harmful? Do I consider it? Do I feel safe because I've got a gun? Or do I feel safe because I read Ayatul Kursi? Which one makes me feel safe? You understand? Which one do I believe is the source of my protection? My burglar bars? My alarm systems? Not that we should not have those things. We can have those things. But is our faith in that, is our reliance on that, is our conviction on that? Or is my conviction on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed me with? Is my conviction, everybody we want to be safe, but how many of us consider that we will be safe because we made Fajr Salah? Man salla salat al-fajr fa huwa fi dhimmatillah. The one who makes his Fajr Salah, and ulama mentions specifically in the masjid, that person comes under the protection of Allah. How many a person believes that, I must go to the masjid for Fajr, otherwise I don't have Allah's protection? How many a person, if he doesn't come to the masjid, for some reason he overslept or whatever, a person, for example, that normally comes to the masjid for Fajr, if that person on an occasion does not manage to come to the masjid, on that day, does he still feel safe? Or does he feel uneasy? Ek was in die masjid vanoggend nie. Enigiets kan gebeur vandag. How do we feel? Do we feel contented or don't? Because how would we feel if we don't have, I normally go to work and I have my gun in my pocket. And then I feel safe because I've got my gun in my pocket. So the day I don't have my gun with me, do I still feel safe? Do I still feel safe? Or don't I feel safe? If I don't feel safe because I don't have my gun, where's my reliance? But now the question is, how do I feel if I didn't make my Fajr Salah? Or I don't make my Fajr Salah, but I feel safe. How many of us relate the things that is happening to us daily in our lives to our amal? If this thing happens, do I consider, I didn't give some sadaqah today, I didn't do this today, I didn't do that today? Or is it that we relate the events of our day and our life either to the doing or the discarding of material meals? That if I had this thing, this wouldn't have happened. If I did that thing, this wouldn't have happened. You understand? So where do we consider the causes and effects to be coming from. And where do we see the solutions? Because Surah Fatiha is telling us, وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. You alone do we rely on. You alone do we seek assistance from. So we need to examine ourselves, because that is why we find وَقَدْرِ خَيْرِ وَشَرِّ مِنَ اللَّهِ. You understand? Where do we see the things coming from, the tests coming from? And then we make the dua, as that mentioned in the hadith, that Surah Fatiha is divided into two parts. Allah, the hadith Qudsi says, فَنِسْلِ abd, half is for my slave. And then the matter between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. This is the connection between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how we look after this is what will determine the nature of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. And that is why we ask Allah ta'ala, guide us to the straight path. Ay dullana wa arshadana ya Rabb ila tariqik. You lead us to your path. What is Sharia, for example? We speak about the ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Now, the word sirat means a path. And the word Sharia also means a path. It also means a road. So, the sirat al-mustaqim that we are asking for, Allah Ta'ala is providing via the Sharia. Because the Sharia is the sum total of ahkam and principles and values that a Muslim needs to try to implement as best as possible under a particular circumstance to enable him to reach the pleasure of Allah. That is the Sharia. The Sharia is that path that the person... So how do I know whether I am on the Sirat al-Mustaqim or not? How do I know whether I am on Jakkalsvlei Avenue or on Bonteheuwel or on Blue Gum Way? How do I know that I'm on the Sirat al-Mustaqim? The measure for a person to know whether he is on the Sirat al-Mustaqim is whether in everything that he does in his life, he is either compliant with the Sharia or he is not compliant. But then we must keep in mind that the Sharia is such a unique set. That's why I say it is ahkam, it is principles, because remember we're doing usulul fiqh. So we've got ahkam, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid. Then we've got certain principles that we need to use, because there are certain aspects in which the ahkam are silent. There are certain matters in our lives that we will find where Allah Ta'ala has not made a specific ruling. Allah has not made a specific ruling. And that is where we find that these principles that the ulama extracted from the sources in order to enable us to use the sources. In other words, they've got certain principles to help us know what to do to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it also contains certain values, what they will generally refer to as the maqasid sharia. Maqasid sharia, that there are certain general overruling values within Islam that we are required to strive to protect. So then, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is silent with regards to particular hukum, we need to use the rules, in other words, the principles. There's ahkam, then there's principles, and then there's values. So we then need to use the principles in the light of the values to determine what will be the correct thing to do under the circumstances. So for example, under normal circumstances, a person is supposed to make 4 rak'ats of salah. And when he's traveling, it becomes 2. Why? Because there were certain circumstances that prevailed at the time by means of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a concession. Which means that how we apply the rules and the laws of the Sharia is relevant to 2 things. Number one, the general circumstances that applies at a particular time that affects everybody. So for example, we find that under normal circumstances, if a person steals, what must happen to him if he's caught and is found guilty? His hand must be cut off. In the time when there was a famine, when there was no food, in the period of the Khilafat of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, there was no food for nobody. Everybody was searching for food. Why? To save their lives, to save their children's lives. In that circumstance, when a person was found to have stolen food to eat, to save his life, Sayyidina Umar made an assessment and a judgment that it would not be just under those circumstances to cut off the person's hand when he was caught stealing. So in other words, when there's a general prevailing circumstance, the application of the Sharia can be suspended because of remember I said that there's ahkam and principles and values. Because one of the values of our Sharia is the preservation of life. And we do have a principle where a person can eat what is forbidden under normal circumstances, what is haram, when? To save his life. So if you can eat that which is generally forbidden to save your life, Sayyidina Umar made the assessment that you can also do what under normal circumstances would not be allowed because of the conditions that prevail at that time. You understand the beauty of our Sharia? That's not, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, that, ek is nou bietjie honger nou, and then I go steal and say, no, but ek was honger. No, the prevailing circumstance is not such that everybody is affected by it. And then under certain circumstances, the Sharia, I say two things that the Sharia looks at. One is the prevailing circumstance. Number two is the specific condition of that person. If a person makes salah, and then what must he do? He must stand in qiyam. He must make salah standing. Because qiyam, to stand, is a rukun of salah. It's an arkan. You must stand. But then a person has got an injury that makes it difficult for him either to continue standing or to be bending. Now, if the person can generally be upright, in other words, he can walk, then it means that the person can be upright. Then it means that such a person, when he starts his salah, he must do so standing, and then he can sit afterwards. But then you find a person that can't do that. So that person starts his salah sitting. And then you find a person who can't sit. So that person must lie down. Then you find a person who can't make any movements. What must he do? He must blink his eyes. And a person who can't blink his eyes, he must make salah in his mind. Why? Because the rules application changes according to, first of all, the general circumstance that applies to everyone, and number two, the personal circumstance of a particular individual. But all of that is why. Why are all of those rules, all of those principles, and all of those values then preserved? Why is it there? Because we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the straight path. So Allah Ta'ala make all of those means available so that every individual, irrespective of his circumstance, can be on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the path that will take him to Allah. And the Sharia is the means to facilitate the person being on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. I'll just finish this because ek sien die tees is al. وَثَبِّتْنَا عَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ, and keep us firm on Islam. الَّذِي بَعَثْتَ بِهِ أَنْبِيَاءَكَ وَرُسُلَكَ, the deen with which you sent your prophets and your messengers. وَأَرْسَلْتَ بِهِ خَاتَمَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, and you sent with it the last messenger. وَجَعَلْنَا مِمَّنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, and enable us to follow the path that of those muqarrabin. Muqarrabin means those who are close to Allah Ta'ala. And who are the people who are close to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala? The person who strives under the personal circumstances in which he finds himself to be able to please Allah Ta'ala. So every person, Allah Ta'ala has made a way for him to obey Allah and to come close to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So therefore we can find that not all rulings in our Sharia are general rulings. Our Sharia has got general rulings that applies to everyone, and within the general ruling there is a ruling for each and every person, which by implication means that if we are 2 billion Muslims in the world, our Sharia is such that it can accommodate the personal circumstance of each and every one of the 2 billion Muslims. There is not a single Muslim, there is not a single Muslim in the world or a single person that can be excluded from the Sharia, provided that the objective and intention of that person is to find the way to Allah. So Allah has made the Sirat al-Mustaqim. May Allah Ta'ala give us all tawfiq that we will appreciate and value this, and that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala makes it easy for us to tread this path. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka ilayk, subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. So inshallah next week we will conclude the surah, inshallah.